Let me do it. I don't know how I want to phrase it. Like like yeah, I'm here with the depressed ass team. Like we're just gonna be crying on stream for the entire. Like I don't know. I don't know if that's like how I want to start it off. What's up, guys? It's IWillDominate from Cloud9. I'm here joined by the team after the unfortunate conclusion of the season 2020. Unfortunately, not going to Worlds, but let's be real, no one wanted to go to Worlds anyway. This bubble system, like, it doesn't even matter, you know? So we're just going to be going into the interview. We're going to talk about how this year really went and then potentially what we're going to do looking forward to next year for Cloud9. So I guess my first question to the team here would be the general feeling of the team. Like, how was it going into playoffs? I know you guys had a little bit of a game skid, I would call it, going into the playoffs. Like, you guys lost some games in the second half of the split, still got second seed, but you guys weren't looking as strong. How confident was the team going into this playoffs? Like, did you view it as just, oh, they were just some regular season games, didn't really matter, or were you guys kind of like worried that it might end up kind of, you know, hampering your ability to get to Worlds?
I guess for me, we kind of knew that we were pretty bad at that point, and for me personally, I was expecting us to like kind of make a resurgence during the playoffs. So I was happy we secured second seed so that we can get more time to kind of like fix our issues, try to figure out what's going wrong. Fortunately, we weren't able to do that, but I thought like eventually in the playoffs we'd go back to our previous level and be able to win pretty easily. But I think we just struggled to find our like same level of aggression or our play style again. So.
Mm-hmm. Well, one thing I wanted to ask is, was there any like, did you guys feel like you guys got worse when you started exploring different meta picks? I know you guys were playing Senna Wukong, things like Sona Lux bot lane. You guys were trying a bunch of different comps that you hadn't been playing before. Did you feel like the fact that you kind of deviated away from your normal team comps that you had been stomping with throughout the season, do you think that like hurt your guys' like identity as a team going into playoffs?
I don't think, personally, I don't think that we really struggled, I guess, because we played those picks. Like, we're not playing picks because we want to play them for fun. Like, we generally think that these are good picks in the meta, and it will give us the best chances to win. And I think just this split alone, I think we all knew that we weren't as, even when we were going 9-0 in the first half of the split, we knew we weren't as dominant. Like, it wasn't feeling like it was last split. We were struggling sometimes in scrims, and our stage games weren't as clean. And I think our problems just started to arise more as the split went on. And like Vulcan said, like towards the end of the regular split, we were pretty bad. Like, we were losing to bottom tier teams in scrims. But I don't think it really hurt our identity. I think we just in general were getting worse, I think.
Were you guys able to like pinpoint what exactly you guys were getting worse on during this? If it wasn't really like the fact that you guys were deviating too much from your normal picks, like was there anything where you pinpointed where you're like, oh, this is like our problem now. This is what we were doing really well in spring, and we've just kind of like lost this edge.
I mean, going into playoffs, a lot of our like review and everything was focused on like trying to figure out how we wanted to do drafts mainly, and like how we wanted to draft team comps and what we wanted to play. And I think we figured out a lot of that actually going into playoffs. So that's like, I don't know. It's like weird to say it, because like in the second half of the split when we were sliding, like we were losing a lot and we like didn't have a good grasp on the meta. We didn't know what we were doing. But honestly, going into playoffs, it felt like we actually like knew what we were doing. And like obviously it turned out that we didn't really know what we were doing, but like it felt pretty good going into playoffs after the regular season. So I was pretty confident that we were gonna be able to win.
Okay. So I mean, you obviously mentioned draft here, and when it comes to draft, you guys had different reads on the meta than a couple of the other teams. You guys would do things like blue side Caitlyn ban that a lot of people found confusing, because like Zven is known as this extremely dominant laner. If you look at his stats historically, he's always been a good Caitlyn player, but it seemed like you guys would shy away from these picks. You guys played a lot of like Ezreal Yumi, Gangplank, things that didn't really fit what people saw as the Cloud9 mold. You guys were known as a super aggressive team, like picking for lane, smashing people, like engage supports, and just trying to run over the game. How did you kind of arrive on this this style of drafting for playoffs?
I mean, I think at least for us, we just play what we think is best. We don't just pick champs just because they're strong in lane or something. I think what happened in spring is our enemies were bad no matter what we pick. Even if we pick scaling champs or lane champs, we'd win anyways. And we also won every skirmish back then. And I feel like this meta is kind of more scaling. Like even like mids like Azir and shit, they're all really strong in the meta, where before they would kind of suck. So think that's why we just picked the best champs, and it happened that they have to scale. So.
Yep. For Zven and Vulcan, like how did you guys feel about like the change in like the picks that you guys were playing? Because everyone knows you guys are lane dominant player. Anyone who plays solo queue this split, like I don't know how many games I've dodged when I heard you guys were on the enemy team. If somebody says, "Oh, they got Zven Vulcan on the enemy team," there's no way that I'm playing out the game, right? So when picks like Kate come into the meta, you think that would be right up your guys' alley, right? Like playing things like Kate Morgana, Kate Lux, these types of lanes where you just snowball and just like take the enemy turret at 10 minutes. Why did you guys shy away from like this style of drafting in playoffs?
We had very low success in scrims with playing as Caitlyn or versus Caitlyn. I don't want to say like, oh, it was something we should struggle at as a team, or maybe it was just like we played bad in lane or something, but we had very, very low success playing as Caitlyn or versus it. So we made the executive decision to not have it in our games. I think if we had more time, we could have figured out like what was going wrong in those games and probably introduce Caitlyn to our drafts, but we didn't have much time, I guess, or maybe we're too lazy. I'm not sure, but we thought it was better to not have Caitlyn in the games.
Yep. Okay. Regarding the scrims themselves, like how is the quality of your guys' scrims? I mean, the rumor is that you guys are scrim gods. You guys win every single set. You're like 4-1 or 5-0 every single time. Is this actually accurate? Were you guys just stomping every single scrim, even in playoffs?
I mean, yeah. I mean, the scrims. I mean, we're winning every scrim, or like at least 3 or 4 of them a day. So it feels like every game we play, usually we win, even because the enemies are just either really bad or they're just inting in draft or like trying new styles that they like never play and shit like that. So it kind of gives us, I guess, worse practice than if they just play like what they would play in LCS, for example. But I guess that's how practice is, where people just try stuff and then the practice we get is not like the best. So
we were thinking these guys are inting us so that we don't get practice. Like the way they were inting at these games, they were wasting our practice. It wasn't on purpose, right? But these people were inting so hard that we couldn't get anything out of those games.
Well, I mean, that is something that people have brought up, right? Like that you guys weren't getting quality practice. Like apparently FlyQuest and TSM both decided to not scrim you guys anymore. I don't know if you guys ended up scrimming them more towards the end of the split, but in general, it seemed like they stopped scrimming you guys. So maybe teams were avoiding giving you guys the best practice because you guys were so far ahead. Do you think that this is actually true, or was it just like, bad RNG that all these teams ended up giving you bad scrim practice?
I mean, I'm pretty sure that FlyQuest didn't just want to scrim us during the season because every time I think it was like 5 or something, and they couldn't learn much. At least that's what I think. About TSM not scrimming us, I have no idea why. I feel like every time we scrimmed, it was actually like decent practice for us, but maybe it was not the same for them, so that's why they didn't want to scrim us. But yeah.
Mm-hmm. Anyone else have like perceptions on the scrims?
I don't think FlyQuest wanted to scrim us because as a team, they pick scaling mid-jungle pretty much always. Or like, not always, but PoE is always picking a scaling champ. And me and Niski usually like to play early game champs. And in scrims, they always get stomped in the first 15 minutes. Like even after we lost to them, we scrimmed them once. We 5-0'd them in like one of our fastest sets after we lost to them in playoffs. And for them, it's like, I think it's not useful that in scrims we just get a bunch of kills. And we're able to snowball early game because that's what we're good at, whereas they're good at scaling. And they don't get much practice because they're just getting stomped from the early game because everyone's dying. Like solo dies like 20 times a game.
Yeah, I mean, I've played solo queue with the guy. I know how that goes. So, one thing that people say is like when you have these types of scrim sets like you're describing, you end up getting a lot of fake data from the scrims. Like because you're stomping everyone so hard, you look at the picks that you're picking and it looks like everything's good, right? So you get false perceptions of matchups, false perceptions of team comps when you're strong, things like that. Do you think that this like contributed to like kind of the weird drafts, like this fake data idea? Or do you guys just not agree that this is a thing, the fake data?
No, I mean, even I think we all agree. Even like we were talking about it, we're playing like champions and scrims, and then it looked like decent, and then we're like, oh, this champion looks good, and we're like, but we won every game, so you cannot even tell if it's good or not, right? And I remember there were some champs that I used to play, and then I played again against a team that didn't fight, and then it looked really useless. I was like, okay, this might not be that good, right? So I feel like at that point you kind of have to figure out what you actually think is good rather than looking at the scrims and then looking how you perform. Because if you win every game, it doesn't matter what you play. I could play Teemo mid and win, and I would think might still be fine because we still won the game, right? So.
Have there been any ideas about like adapting your practice that try not to stomp teams so hard early game so you guys get more practice at other points of the game? I know that like, for example, when I was a player, there was a couple scrim sets when we'd play like our academy team, they would be like, okay, we're just not going to like invade. Like even if you can like get solo kills, like play for chip and stuff like that, like play to push them out, but then like try to actually get to a semi-even situation come like dragon fights, things like that. Was there any idea of like maybe practicing to focus more on like mid to late game because you weren't getting like that much of the practice in scrims in those situations if you're just rolling over everyone?
We talked about it, or like, not we, but like when I think in our end of the year discussions, like we talked about how we can make practice more efficient going into the next year, because I think most of us felt that our scrim practice this year was just not useful. And I think that's something that we can work on going in the future, whereas we can make plans, I guess, on what we actually want to do instead of just killing people and actually following through. Like even if you see a free kill, you don't have to go for it. But I also think it's generally harder for us as a team too, because for me, I always want to fight when I see someone, which is like just my natural instinct. And Nissi also likes to play roaming mid champs like TF, right? So when people are playing over aggressive or making silly mistakes like invading when I have a TF mid in scrims, it's like, yeah, they're inting. They're not gonna do this on stage, but like if you don't punish in scrims, then I'm just giving things. So it's like, I think it's just hard in general.
Yep. So have you guys decided like on any type of idea to like kind of pace yourselves better throughout the season? I mean, scrimming is something that like when you look at teams like G2, they intentionally try to like scrim at different like pressure levels like throughout the season. So spring they take it easier, and then they try to like ramp up to make sure that they're like peaking going into Worlds. So that means like people will play more games, people will be more intense towards the ending of the season, and especially with spring split not mattering. Is there any idea of like trying to pace yourselves better throughout the split and not peak so early throughout the season?
I don't think so. I don't think any of us think it's like a motivation thing to like that we slumped, I guess. Or I think we all worked like pretty similar in summer that we did in spring, like our solo queue numbers. Personally, I played more in summer than I did in spring, so I see like a few people think like a motivation thing that we became bad or like we became lazy or something, but we were working the same way, I think. So I think it's unfair that people like say that, because we all wanted like Worlds very badly, and sucks that we didn't do it. But I think questioning our integrity is kind of fucked, because we all wanted it really bad.
Yeah, I agree with that. When it comes to like coaching staff and things like that, have you guys had any discussions on like how to like not tilt as much, or like I guess I could ask you, like, do you guys believe that you guys tilted at any points? Because there was some points, like for example, going through your voice comms, where it felt like as soon as the enemy team would push back on stage, you guys would get like kind of desperate. It felt like a lot of the fights were forced, and like you guys would fight around things that, you know, it seems like the team was really aware of, like, you know, Shen ult timers, for example. It seems like you guys fought a lot into Shen ult whenever Shen ult had a timer, or like Shen had a timer on his ult. Did you guys feel like there was like more pressure in stage, or like as soon as the enemy team pushed back a little bit, it was harder for you guys to adapt? Like, how do you feel like the mental game of everything was? Like, did you feel more panicked on stage?
I personally did not feel more pressured or panicked on stage. I think in general as a team, we're just not very good versus Shen. That's something we concluded during the split. We thought we were good versus it, because in scrims, we were fighting so much that Shen all timers don't even matter. Like, we were playing TF into Shen, and we didn't have a problem with this, because Nissi was getting kills on cooldown, so Shen can't just save everyone. But on stage, they only fight on their Shen all timers, and we're still fighting all the time, like in scrims. So we just weren't really respecting it, I guess, and we were taking bad fights because of that. But for me personally, I didn't feel more panicked or anything on stage. I felt like I was making the same calls or doing the same thing. I mean, I guess I was playing a little bit with more restraint because it's stage, but didn't feel that different.
Everyone feel similarly to that, or was it different throughout the team?
I think we were kind of desperate a little bit and try to win the game too fast, or we would like try to go for too much, try to kill too many people and like get a Baron, or just go for like just go for too much and overcommit to certain plays, and that would end up backfiring. So I think we were a little bit disparate at times, I guess.
So I guess I could go into the format of the league, right? Like you guys dominated literally 75% of the year. Half of summer, you completely shit on spring. 35-2 in your first 37 games. And you don't really feel like you get rewarded for that. There's no MSI. There's nothing that you actually get for winning spring. So do you feel like the format is kind of weird in LCS when you compare it to every other region, right? LEC, for example, you get points and it could dictate like what your seeding is in the playoffs. Based on like your spring results. There's a gauntlet in LPL, a gauntlet in LCK. Do you feel like NA just doesn't value spring split enough, or do you think that the format needs some form of adjustment?
I mean, this year really sucked because MSI got canceled. Like normally, after winning spring, like we would have had MSI or like some kind of international tournament to play in, and then like because we didn't, then like obviously it feels like it really blows now that we won, like you said, 75% of the year, and we just didn't do anything really. But I don't know. I don't really have any issues with the format. I think that like we should have been a stronger team in summer so that we should have gone to Worlds. And if we were like a top 3 team right now, then we would be going to Worlds.
Zven, do you have any issue with the format itself? Because like I know you're a grinder. You're like you spent so much time like practicing, like being at rank 1. Like it seems like you play more than anyone. So does it feel like you're almost grinding for nothing in the spring?
I think that spring split was actually useless because MSI was cancelled. I do think that the point system has its flaws, that sometimes you send teams like One of Thieves to Worlds because they have more points because TSM and C9 sucked in spring split of that year. So that makes the point system, flawed at times because that year One of Thieves was like the 4th best team in NA, right? But they went to Worlds because they had points from spring split. So I think the point system sucks at times because you can go on points only. I think that if the point system only gave you points for Gauntlet, that'll be fine. And I think that spring split this year was actually useless because MSI was cancelled. But if MSI wasn't cancelled, it would have been fine because going to MSI is a invaluable experience. I've been there, and the practice you get from there and the amount of practice you get and the amount of skill you take home is worth it. So I think if MSI wasn't cancelled, it would have been fine. But since it was cancelled, it was actually spring was completely useless.
Yeah. What about the LEC format? So, for example, the LEC format, you don't get auto-qualified based off points, but it affects your seeding going into playoffs. So, for example, if you guys win spring, you guys came in second in regular season, you probably would have got the first seed, meaning that you would have played like Golden Guardians, for example, to go to Worlds instead of having to battle through FlyQuest. Do you think that point system makes more sense? Like that could be a more fair way because you still have to win semifinals to get to Worlds, but it gives you like an advantage at least in the semifinal matchup if you do win spring or do well in spring.
I think that's pretty good. I think obviously if you're first place or if you win the split in spring, then you go to MSI and you get a big advantage from it. But let's say you're like the second best team and you lost the finals, then you don't get anything at all for your second place, like going to summer. So I think having a bit of an advantage in playoffs would be fair after you place well in spring.
So one thing that people don't know that I guess we can announce here is that the team is actually staying together. All 5 of you guys are going to be C9 starting team going into spring of 2021. So do you guys have any is there any nervous feelings about, oh come on, we dominated so hard, what happens if it happens again? Are there any feelings like that, or did the team just decide hey, this is our squad, we had a bad period but we're gonna run it back? You guys feel confident in each other going into potentially making Worlds next year going into 2021?
I'm pretty sure all of us think that we're all good players and we match really well. Like you saw our spring performance. I think we just had a big slump in summer, which we couldn't get out of. And I feel like if we all work together next year again, then I'm pretty sure we're going to do great again because we all know that as a team we work really well and individually we're really good too. So I don't think Jack or anyone needed a change because it worked so well for us, right? It just sucked at the end, but pretty sure we're gonna come back stronger next year, and yeah, that's all I can say.
Yep. Anyone else have any feelings? Are you guys at least feeling some sign of relief? I know normally when a team doesn't get the goal they want, you're just sitting there in the off season wondering what's gonna happen, wondering who's gonna get cut. Does this give you some at least foundation so you guys can kind of just focus on whatever problems there were like with the team in order like to get to Worlds, like so you guys aren't so overly focused on where you're gonna play or like your career? Do you guys feel like, you know, at least more comfortable knowing that this is like the situation going forward?
I mean, it's nice. Like, it's definitely good to know that there aren't going to be any huge changes, and like, I think we all get along really well, and I like everyone on my team. So like, it's good to know that I'm going to be playing with them next year. But I also just think like, we lost like a week ago. Like, it's like we just started the off season. Like, we're not like, for me personally, I'm not thinking about like next year yet. I'm like, man, like, fuck. I'm like sad and like just trying to figure out what to do with myself right now. So
Yeah. I mean, I know the feeling all too well. I you know, got fourth twice and didn't make Worlds. So, you know, it is what it is. It's obviously a long off season. It definitely sucks. I guess this is a question that I'd ask to Zven because I was in a similar situation where like 2 years I was like, you know, 1 seed away from making it. And I know it took like a toll on me mentally. Like, how are you dealing with like the idea of like not being able to go to Worlds? Obviously, you've been to Worlds. You've had great performances there. Like, is it something that really bothers you, or are you kind of just like shrugging it off because you know that you've like been able to perform there and like, you know, you've had good experiences so far?
I think I was more disappointed the first 2 years in 2018 and 2019 because I lost in the gauntlet and it felt different than this one. This time, I don't want to say I knew we were going to lose, but I didn't think it was going to be easy this time. In 2018, I thought qualifying for Worlds was going to be a given, almost. I kind of took it for granted when I was in the EU that I'll go to Worlds every year. And then I learned that I could actually lose and not make it Worlds every year. So I think the first year was the hardest, and then it started to become like more okay, I guess. I mean, obviously I'm so disappointed that we didn't make Worlds this year and stuff, but I guess I've learned to overcome the disappointment or whatever. So it's getting easier to deal with.
Sounds good. I guess last thing I'll ask you guys is like any plans for the off season? Like, what are you guys gonna do with your time going into like, you know, I mean, obviously we're locked out in Corona, that you're limited in what you can do, but like, are you guys going to take a break, you know, like try to like, you know, de-stress, wait until like preseason patch comes out, start playing then? Or are you guys just like motivated to keep on playing League right now? Like, how are you guys feeling with, you know, the off season ahead of yourselves? Any plans?
I mean, for me, I'm probably just gonna chill for now. Maybe play some other games and then go home. Maybe think for a while. And then go home for a while. And yeah, just kind of rest there.
This kid's playing WoW 20 hours a day.
No, not true.
Did you already beat Detroit?
No. Oh, I didn't actually.
No, not yet.
Not yet. And then just come back.
Once we get allowed to travel, I'm gonna go home, and then whenever the offseason starts, I'll start playing League again. I don't play much in this time where there's no offseason start, but once they announce offseason, I will start playing for like a week in a row to get a challenger, and then once it starts for real, I'll actually play games of League. But right now, it feels kind of useless to play League to me because I won't play competitive games on this patch anyways. So playing games is like kind of useless to me. So I save up some juice, I guess, for when the actual season is announced. So yeah, like last year when I started playing in Korea in off season, it was actually really good for me. I think that's actually very useful to play like a lot of games every single day when the off season comes out. So yeah, that's gonna be my plan again.
Vulcan, you have any plans? Are you going to use your juice to get Valorant, or, you know, what's the plans for you?
No, I'm done with that game. Valorant sucks. Plans for me?
Okay.
I'm also going to go back home probably in the next week. I've still been playing a lot of games of League because I have nothing else to do in my life. So I'm
Yep. Happens.
Yeah, I'm sure I'll take a break eventually, but for now I don't know what to do, so I'm just really bored. But yeah.
All right, Licorice, you gonna pull the switch up? Are you gonna start playing 20 games a day now, solo queue? You know, now that the off season hit, or are you just gonna
I'm
chill for a bit?
I'm not really planning on playing any solo queue right now. I'm kind of the same boat as Zven, where I think like once it's preseason, if we're gonna do some kind of like Korean boot camp or like anything, then I think it's really useful to play on that patch. But for now, it just like feels kind of pointless.
All right. And I guess last but not least, Blabber, do you have any specific plans for the off season? Well, let's hear from the fish.
No, I'm probably going to go home in the next couple of weeks. And I haven't touched League. I don't think I'm going to touch it for a while until, like Sven said, the new patch hits, because, I mean, it's just pointless. They always change the game so much going to the next year, so, yeah, I'm probably just going to go home and do nothing.
Sounds good. Well, I appreciate you guys sitting here and talking to me about the conclusion of the season. I know this will bring a lot of clarity to the fans of you guys that really wanted to see you guys at Worlds, but hopefully they can look forward to seeing this roster again in 2021, and I wish you guys best of luck.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tom.
Thank you guys for watching this interview. This was the third interview that we've done here. Obviously, not the most happy one given the results, but we will be doing more going into next year. Also, if you guys want, we could potentially do interviews with Jack and some of the team as well. So yeah, like the video if you enjoyed it, and I will be here for more content for you guys.